Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals. Welcome to another disastrous episode of the Animal Control Report podcast. This is your host, Daniel Ettinger, with
Ashlee Bishop.
And Ashlee Bishop.
I don't know why I said this is your host, because we're all hosts. This is a disaster. We're just a disaster here.
Did you just find our other ones disastrous and that's why you came back, Dan?
What had happened was no, this is we're going to talk about disaster response and preparedness on episode 248.
Damn.
That's impressive, y'all.
We're getting up there.
I don't know how we did it. For those of you listening, this is our last episode. Thank you for being a loyal. I'm just kidding.
I was like,
it's not even April. It's not even April 1st.
The look on Ashlee's face.
I was like, all right, we're going there. Okay.
No, I like to keep people on their toes. In fact, I hope that person on YouTube's listening because they got really mad. They got really mad that we have fun like this in the beginning. So if you don't like our fun in the beginning, you can just skip forward about 6 minutes. Can I tell you
that was my thought. Just skip ahead.
Skip. You can. There's a button. You just skip. If you hit it, it goes 30 seconds. But we like to have fun on the Animal Control Report, brought to you by the newly announced ACO, Animal Control Officer, and Animal Control Agency of the Year awards. Those are presented by a few different folks, like our friends at Tomahawk Live Trap and our friends at Animal Control and Care Academy. They're going to give 2 awesome scholarships to their trainings. You can check them out at Academy. I can't even talk again. At accacademy.net, accacademy.net. And again, check out Tomahawk Live Trap. So those awards will be announced January. Did we say January 5th?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. Really quick, one other thing I have. I woke up this morning super early, as they both know, because I texted them like, y'all want to start now? Y'all ready? Look at all this energy I got. I'm ready to go. And
he has so much energy that the words don't come flowing out appropriately. And
it's true even when I don't have energy. And I wake up and I come out of my room, and guess whose face is inside the food container just chowing down?
Bad dog.
Mooney. I don't know where he is right. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
He's sleeping it off.
Yeah, that was you. It was buffet Sunday over here. So how are y'all? How is everything?
Good. It was a good busy week. Very busy week. I was getting in at 7:00 in the morning to help clean and stuff, and I just realized that my body can't handle it like it used to back in the day. Cleaning for 4 hours. Kudos to our staff, because good Lord Almighty, my body can't handle it no more, y'all. And not to say that I don't help often, but every now and then they'll come and get me and say, hey, can you come help us with this? Sure, not a problem. But to go from 7 to 12, kudos to my staff, because I just, my body can't no more, y'all.
I got some Mother Nature up here is in her menopause state. So Tuesday it was high of 37. Today it's going to be almost 80.
Wow.
So
can I also just share how quickly I acclimated to living somewhere that's a warm climate? So I used to, be out in the field in the negatives or the low 10s, whatever. It got pretty cold in Denver. And, you just hoodie up or hat up, glove up, you're okay. You layer, you layer.
right.
Well, can I just say yesterday morning when I went out to walk the dog, it was 55 degrees out and I was freezing. I was like, why does 55 feel like 30?
Welcome to my life in Texas when it
That's
gets 60
crazy.
degrees and I'm freezing over here.
I was just like, this is insane.
I definitely loved my bulletproof vest in the
Mm,
winter time.
absolutely. You mean you're
Hey,
expired? You're
my
expired bullet.
expired, but they don't expire, Dan.
Oh, that's right. That's just a warranty date according to
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
people. Hmm.
We will totally delve into this in January, guys.
Oh, I'm ready. That
Like,
yeah, we can do a series.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so
I'm
ready.
so ready. Well, all right, let's jump into disasters. So, first and foremost, first, I think I want to start personally by saying thank you to all the people that have responded to these things. It's unbelievable to see the aftermath, the videos, the photos of what goes on during hurricanes, fires, floods, earthquakes, all those things. And obviously, we had Hurricane Milton recently, and
Helene.
Helene. You
Hmm.
taking selfies over there, Bishop? For those of you that's not watching on YouTube or Spotify, she's over there taking photos of something.
I'll share it. You can put it on the uh, podcast.
So when I think about that stuff, like, and I've worked recently, I actually worked a disaster, and not in the same way that some of these other people that are getting deployed. It is unreal, unreal. So if either of you worked any disasters?
Uh,
Yes.
I'll let Ashley go first because she's got more experience than I do, honestly. And I don't know. I would call my experience more volunteering,
Okay.
essentially.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was also volunteering. I went out in what year was Irma and Maria? Was that 2017, maybe? 20,
2017 was Harvey.
but then it was the same year because Harvey
Okay.
hit first, and then it was Maria and Irma. Um, so I went out with the ASPCA down to Florida, which was just a crazy experience. Um, what we were doing was we were doing logistics. So we were um, taking animals from the panhandle, moving them up north so that as animals were being found at the, in the hometowns, they could actually keep them there for owners to come find. And then we had tons of food and crates and um, toys and just anything you could think of that a family might need to provide for their pets but may not have access to. We had kind of a warehouse area that we were keeping all those supplies at, and then we would deliver them to shelters so shelters could give them out to their community members. So I did that for a week, and it was insane. Like when we got down there, first of all, they didn't even know where they were going to put us up in a hotel because the hotels were booked.
Mm.
um so we ended up on our way having to drive up into Alabama, stay there for the night to drive down to Miami. But
Alabama, Arkansas. Sorry.
as we're driving down, like we had to have the Gas Buddy app because there were gas stations that had fuel but no power, or they had power and no fuel. Um, so it was very interesting experience. We did not make it out to the Keys that year. The Keys got hit really, really bad. Um, we didn't go there, but we were down in Miami and moving animals around and stuff. Um, and just thinking about all the animals that, got kind of left behind by owners who just they didn't know what to do, right? So it was definitely an experience.
Yeah, and for me, Harvey, at the time, I was unemployed when Harvey was coming. And so, I had enough resources at home to just kind of pick up and go to Houston. I'm about probably an hour and a half out of Houston. And I just ended up, I was looking online, seeing who was deployed or dispatched somewhere. I will say where I was deployed probably wasn't doing the things that they should have been, and I'll just leave it at that. just like a normal function of, incident command. It really wasn't something that was taking part, I feel. But regardless, there was a lot of donations flowing through and whatnot, and we ended up moving into the inner city once the waters receded, and they ended up setting up camp in a building that flooded that they gutted. And I was there for about 2.5 weeks. I was doing about 12 to 15-hour days, driving back and forth every day, because at that point in time, I had a family to take care of. My significant other at the time had 2 little boys. So I had to come back and forth and make sure that they were taken care of. But it was an interesting experience. I ended up being the medical manager for them. So I was out there. It was hot. The
Mm-hmm.
community came out though and was helping us out quite a bit. We were getting homemade food delivered, because nothing was open and whatnot. But it was interesting. I met a lot of cool people, that's for sure, that deployed from other states, a lot of veterinarians from the East Coast. I met some really kick-ass people from the West Coast, some technicians that came in that are just whoo. I still talk to them to this day. They're amazing human beings. I learned a lot of first aid. I mean, one of the girls made a splint out of cardboard for a dog who had a broken leg. I mean, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. But yeah, it's tough. It was tough. I'm from deep South Texas, and I can tell you where everything is down there. But man, I think the first couple of days when I went out there, all the towers were down. I got lost at one point in the center of Houston. I had no idea where I was. So couldn't rely on my phone. So I had to rely on all the signs and everything, which was a great experience. But yeah, even just trying to maneuver in and out of the city close to when Harvey hit was tough. There was a lot of floods everywhere. The highways were flooded. Um, but yeah, I think it's super important to have some kind of contingency plan, especially if you're in a facility that houses animals. Like, make sure you have some kind of plan, or get with your county emergency management team to ensure that all
Yes.
of you are on the same page, because things can go pretty south pretty quickly, especially if your building is aged quite a bit, or you've never been through something like that. How do you bring in animals if you don't have cell service, or you don't have a printer, or electricity just in itself? So what do you do at that
Mm-hmm.
point? So I think it's super important for everybody to think about those things, because it can
And
be risky.
that's a really good point. Because I had the experiences that I had. So that was just one of my three, soon to be four, deployments with the ASPCA. When I came back home, our emergency management team for the county actually had reached out to me and said, I was the only full-time humane officer for the county. The sheriff's department had some, but they were deputies who were also doing animal control stuff, not solely animal control stuff. So the emergency management team reached out to me and said, hey, if we have any kind of disaster, whether it be man-made or, natural, can you be the lead? And I said, absolutely. Having gone out on various deployments, whether it was for a disaster or even just working at the shelter with the ASPCA, the information that I took away from that was phenomenal. Um, and it was something I would suggest anybody to do, even if you have to, take a week of vacation or something to be able to, um, go do this. That was one thing I had to do when I did my deployments previously, um, is go out with an organization that has a clue as to what they're doing, and you will get so much information to bring back and be able to utilize, and hopefully you never have to. But it was definitely invaluable information, and it I would well, I'm going to be doing it again here shortly, but um anybody in a management position I think absolutely should, just to see how to do things on a large scale.
Correct. And you don't have to necessarily be with an agency that, quote unquote knows what they're doing, but also make sure that you're you're doing your research on what needs to be happening. Again, there's a way to do things. There are incident commands that need to be paid attention to and things like that. Don't just set up shop, which I learned at that point in time. So I learned a lot from that, and it's good experience to come back and see how things should be done. But yeah, it could get pretty hairy. It could
You
get pretty.
know, speaking to that though, you can take the FEMA trainings that tell you your incident command, and I would say any management should do that. It's free of charge online. Um, so I would say anybody, anytime should just take them and have that in the back of your head. That's actually one of the requirements for the ASPCA is we had to take that class.
Even further than management, I think anyone in our profession,
Or in the field
Yeah.
too.
in the field in our profession, I mean, they're not super long courses, and
No.
it gets you at least aware. And for me, like going through those courses, I'll say that muscle memory is the most important thing. And so
Mm.
one of my recommendations to leadership is to install some sort of kind of regular use of that, a bit like of that, I guess, uh, skill. I don't know how else to say it, like, because
Training scenarios.
yeah, exactly. Like put your people out there, have mock fires, mock whatever, mock floods, earthquakes, things that you'll have to respond to. Even, and some people don't understand like how quick you can activate your EOC. Like, say you
Mhm.
work in a community that has a highway and a truck carrying 300 chickens, tips over on the highway, that becomes an emergency. And how do you handle that situation? And so I think it's important for us to just be prepared in those moments. And I one of the things that I noticed is I think every single emergency we learn something new from it,
Mhm.
you know. So I
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. It brings something new. And also, even if it is a natural disaster, it can bring, a lot of good skills to when you have to go seize 230 rats and
Hmm.
21 venomous snakes and those
oof,
type
Oh,
of things.
nice.
So, um,
Sounds
yeah,
like you have experience.
yeah, that was also a very interesting experience. My first high volume seizure for our department when I took over. So yeah, it's stuff that you can bring on. There's a lot of stuff that we learned that we thought we could do a lot better the next time we have to do a major seizure like that with small animals. Um, but God, it's so important, guys. It's so important to have some kind of contingency plan, even within your city. Make sure you know who your EOC point of contacts are so that you can reach out to them if you need anything. Some areas have, like our jurisdiction, there's one shelter that is the main point of contact for when things hit the fan. So, and then we're just support on that end. So just make sure you're reaching out and know who your peeps are.
it's like turn around and then reach out. That's all we're doing here. Yeah, okay.
My grandmother always used to tell me, and I live by this statement, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm,
So make sure you know the people you need to know, because they probably need to know you for some reason too.
For sure, for sure.
But the one thing that I feel like it's becoming a little bit more prevalent um in society, but there's definitely a lack of not necessarily information, but lack of understanding from people is that they need to prepare for their animals as much as they need to prepare for themselves and their families in these disasters.
agreed. And I think we're in the day and age too of, ignorance is not bliss, we have a lot of opportunity to ensure that we're doing things ahead of time than not. Sometimes, you don't know, sometimes like Milton, for instance, they didn't think it was going to be completely terrible. But and it hit all of a sudden, and some people that didn't think that they were going to be in such a pickle were in a pickle. So that I understand, but for everybody who knows the infamous bulldog or bull terrier, that was left on the
Trooper.
side of that was left on the side of the highway. I mean, come on, man. Like I just, there's no excuse for something like that at
Yeah,
all.
Yeah.
and yeah, no, we actually made contact with the state attorney's office and offered them a opportunity to come on the show. And because it's an open case, they had some reservations, and then they asked about availability, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to come on. It'd be cool to just talk about the overall process of what happens from their perspective in those situations. And would that, I guess my question is, if that was a Tuesday, just a regular rainy day, and an animal control officer is the one that found it and videotaped it, would that have gotten as much press as it did because of A, I mean, the hurricane, but B, because it was a law enforcement officer?
Mm, that's a fair point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't disagree, because I know we feel that, in our industry overall, it's like we do stuff every day, but, God forbid, somebody in another law enforcement agency that's not animal control saves an animal. It's like the whole world is saved, but, us over here, it's just a dog catcher and they're just doing their job. Um, but yeah, I don't disagree, Dan. I think that's a good point. And like I said from the beginning, when this kind of made news, let's see if it sticks because
Yeah.
we all know how it goes through the court system, and everybody makes a big hoopla about it, and then we get through the courts and it's a slap on the hand. So
Hmm. I'm confused as to, I actually had not heard about this until you guys were talking about it. Um, and so he just left the dog tied up to the fence amid floods and the hurricane that he was ahead of. Um, but why?
Well, I don't think that came out yet, and all you
mhm.
see in the video is the dog sitting in a puddle, tied up to the
Well,
fence. Yeah, can't move.
I I have an article here that says that he said he didn't have anybody to pick up the dog.
Oh, okay. Huh.
What the dog's in your vehicle. If the dog's already in your vehicle, just fucking take it. What am I missing here? Sorry.
No, yeah,
Even my
I don't know.
child is standing here going, what the fuck?
But hey, if your dog's in your vehicle doing this, you might not want to take it.
Excitement about going to the ocean. Yeah. Right. Right on cue.
So if your dog's doing that, you might be like, man, I'm just kidding, people. You wouldn't, there's no reasonable action that anybody could take to actually let their dog just be tied to the side of the road where it will die a slow, sufferous, horrible death.
Or even
Yeah.
like livestock, the stories you hear about livestock that are caught in pens and stuff like that. Like, come on, man.
Just open them up.
Just open them up. They should have been branded in the first place. They should have all the proper
Yep.
thingamajiggies and whatnot. I'm not a big livestock person, but all the proper tags and branding and whatnot. I don't get it in this day and age. I just don't get it. I don't get it. We get all kinds of warnings, and it's just it's unacceptable in my opinion. I would rather sleep in my car with my kids, my dogs, than leave them at home wondering
Right.
what's going to happen to them.
Right.
I just
What about
So
what
go ahead, Dan.
what about the expectation going back to like working disasters? Like, are you prepared? And I'm just asking this generally to our listeners that hopefully some of them are in the field and hopefully some of them work in the shelters. Like, are you also prepared from the aspects? So, say there is a disaster and you do have pets or you do have a family at home. Are you prepared to not be able to come home?
Mm.
That's such a
That
good question.
Yeah, that's something we don't think about. Like the
Mm-mm.
reality is you're not like if there is a true disaster, you're not going home. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
you are working it for tw 12, 15, 20 hours in a single 24-hour period. So
Mm-hmm.
you hopefully have some sort of plan in place for your personal life. Otherwise now your own animal is suffering, or your family is needing something that they can't get because you're at the
Deployed.
shelter or deployed, wherever it may be.
Yeah, that's well, and even if you're not in, that goes for anybody that is in any form of emergency management, doctors, medical professionals, um, they actually have cards that you can put in your wallet that say,
Mhm.
I have a pet at home, and I wish more people carried them. Um, put on their phone number of somebody that can be reached in the case that something happens to you, because maybe you have plans and you're out working in the field and you actually can go home, but then you get injured. Then what? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so having all of those things in consideration. Um, but then how do you prepare your community to be prepared for their animals?
I mean, it's hard because the people that are true, like, it's a hard reach, I think, because the people that are truly going to be prepared are likely already going to be prepared. And you got to look at it in the aspects of like human nature. There are just some people that are more prepared than others. Others want to be detached from the idea of a disaster because it's scary, right? The
Hmm.
idea of having just let's pause really quickly and like take a mental look at those photos that you've seen from these disasters. Like people's whole lives are completely changed. Like they're living in a hotel right now, or maybe living in a car right now because their home that they call, that they either owned or rented, however they lived in it, no longer exists.
Yep.
They may have lost family members. So, like thinking about that big picture, when you have to start to plan or prepare for that, that's scary stuff. So you have to explain to people like why it's important, how it can be a benefit in those moments. Like, I don't. Do either of you have a fire bag in your
No.
house?
No,
So like, yeah.
my husband and I have been talking about it, because again, he's a 911 dispatcher too. So
Hmm.
if shit hits the fan, I'm sure he's gonna be gone, because shit hit the fan in our area, and it's something that we need.
Well, and I don't mean it as a go bag. Like those are two
No,
different
for
things.
sure. No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like all those documents that will take you
Mm-hmm.
months
Mm-hmm.
to get back, if not longer. Make sure you have like a fire bag. You can go to Amazon right now. And not that we're sponsored by Amazon. Check out Amazon.com for fire bag. But a simple purchase,
Mm-hmm.
probably 20, $30 can save you headaches. Like little things like that. Electronics, like your computer backup, like maybe backup to the cloud, that type of stuff if you have things that really concern you. But like other than that, like everything else is replaceable. Like your family's not, your pets are not replaceable. Some of those hard to get documents like Social Security, birth certificate, etc. Like that stuff's hard. Your marriage license, like that's hard. But everything else, like if my TV caught on fire and blew up, it would be a good excuse to go buy a new one. Just saying. I'm looking at that thing. No, I'm just kidding. It's good. But in the reality is like it is scary to prepare, and we have to break down that barrier of why it's scary.
Hmm.
That's a really good point, Dan. It is a really good point because in my mind, I'm just we always got to be prepared for the worst. The way unfortunately that I work, in our shelter because of how old the building is. I'm always thinking about what the worst that could happen. Like disease spread, or God
Hmm.
forbid our AC goes out, or we lose the roof, or whatever. So yeah, that's a really good point, to be able to have empathy and not be able to just go to that person and be like, why haven't you done this?
Hmm.
It's a
And
really good point.
and in those, I couldn't imagine being in. I couldn't like I was recently part of a large scale operation like that, and just listening over the radio how they're dispatching, how they're working. There are so many moving pieces, and so my hat's off to all those folks that are really trained and just well versed in disaster preparedness. I would say like I can do what I need to do regarding our profession, but these people that coordinate all the big stuff, there's no that like that's an amazing job. So I think uh, as I said, like we continue to learn from every disaster that we have, and I think it's important that we continue to like try to educate and let people know like the better you can be prepared. One thing I will say about animals that I've noticed in this profession, and I've worked a few disasters, nothing crazy like any of these floods or hurricanes. Um, but most people want to keep their animal with them. It's like last resort that they don't.
Mhm.
hmm And the problem there is the organizations needing to find a way to shelter those animals. You know, a lot of the issues are making sure that animals are getting retrieved by the correct owners and then having the appropriate people to take care of those animals while, because maybe you do have them sheltered separately. Um, but making sure that they're still getting the appropriate care. So you have to either have the staff or, I've seen a lot of different ways to go about that, whether it be owners, even if the animals are sheltered separately, um, owners being responsible for coming and taking care of the pets and things like that. But the biggest challenge there is documentation. Um, what is the number one thing that owners could do that would keep their pets with them or be able to track them back to them?
Microchip.
Yeah.
And what about that microchip, Ashley?
Be up to date.
It's a miracle. Somebody knows. Sorry, like we talk about it frequently on the podcast, but like before any disaster, make sure your microchip information is up to date. Even if you have to host some kind of a event where you say, "Hey, bring your pets in, we'll check their microchip," you know, maybe record their numbers. Our licensing, we kept microchip numbers. Make sure that those are up to date there. That's a second source of information where you can get the data from. That would be probably easier than calling the microchip company who's going to get inundated with a ton of calls. But I just wish owners would do that one simple thing.
On the other end of that, all the agencies out there, whether you're animal control or the animal shelter, make sure you're paying attention to your retention. For
Mm-hmm.
Texas, we have to keep paper records of our microchips for 15 years.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Not a lot of people do that. And I will tell you what, it comes in clutch sometimes.
Uh-huh.
It really does. So make sure that you're paying attention to your state's retention rates, whether it's got to be paper or electronic, and double, triple check it. Microchip numbers are long. They're so long. So make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they're correct and that you have a secondary contact. It's so important to have a secondary contact because not all the times are you going to get that owner on the phone or something happened to
Mm-hmm.
their number or whatever. Get a secondary contact and an email address. But I can't tell you how many times we've called somewhere and they said no. There's a local place that does low cost vaccines. They don't scan their animals, or if they microchip that pet, they don't keep it on record. I'm like, what are you doing? How is that helpful?
It's
Well, and that's the other thing is I get that it's a little bit of a time suck, but there are easy ways to do it. If you are doing the microchipping for the agencies out there, the vet clinics, the animal control, the shelters, whatever, take the time to register that chip for the person because it's going to save you in the long run if that national company actually has that information so you don't have to go through those paper records.
absolutely.
Um,
Just
because that,
really quick, I want to jump into people's personalities during events like this or disasters because it's really important that we talk about it and prepare. It goes back to preparedness. You can tell a lot about somebody when they have to deal with adversity. I like to say, I don't know if I made this up or I saw this quote somewhere, but it's how
probably
you
made it up.
she might be right. But it's how you respond to adversity that defines your character. And I mean that because I've experienced that not only from myself, but from others. And I'll give you a few examples. This is, you can Google this. You could just put, if you Google 100 dogs rescued in Vale Pass accident or something like that. Um, I-7, it was 100 dogs traveling on I-70 from Texas to
Yep.
Washington State. They were the property of a rescue. The rescue was transporting them from, high kill shelters, if you will, to rescues and or already adopters in not Seattle specifically, but Seattle area. And they decided to come over Vale Pass in winter of 2015. And I think it was like a 4-horse trailer they were pulling on a gooseneck and had 100 dogs stacked in crates, some doubled up. And they hit a patch of ice, black ice, and jackknifed. And thankfully, none of the animals were hurt. As we immediately had to get called into action. Like there was nothing we could do. As I mentioned, like if you don't have a plan at home, you're stuck. And one of the things one of the biggest memories I have of this again is talking about personality and adversity. And so what we were trying to do was minimize the number of animals we had to care for on a regular basis until they could get that trailer back up and running. And because the thing that we were in good luck with was these animals were owned by the rescue. So they weren't like individually owned. And so the rescue had a few that weren't accounted for. And they were like, well, I asked them, like, would you be willing to have some available for adoption? Like, if we go public with this right now, you're going to get help. Like, people are going to want to, oh, this is such a great story. And so, sure enough, they gave us like 5 or 6, maybe 7 dogs to bring it down from 100 to whatever, 95, 94. So we sent them to our shelter because we had space for them. And we were sending people to the shelter to to see the dogs, and we had a worker there, and they had been there quite some time. Their career, they weren't I guess, like, just to paint the picture, overall they weren't really just happy in their role. And the one thing that got back to me that they said, because we were allowing volunteers to also come and assist at our pop-up emergency shelter, because it was different. Again, these aren't individually owned animals. This is a rescue needing assistance. So this coworker, not even coworker, she was staff, says, I hope one of those dogs bites somebody in the fucking face. Like, this is a worker. And so that adversity made her so upset, so frustrated, so angry that things changed and there were so many things going on. That way that she digested it or talked about it was so visceral that she would wish harm on somebody, a innocent volunteer, when all we're trying to do is help the situation. And so the reason I bring that up, because it's so important to understand that in these moments, people will react in ways that may surprise you. And you have to prepare people for these situations. And I'm going to go to the next example about how to prepare for these situations, how to get people feeling comfortable with uncomfortable situations. And so there was a time where it was some downtime. This is a different agency. And I planned a mock crime scene, a mock like animal cruelty response. And what I did is I worked with our crime scene team and our law enforcement team, and we came up and we like set up this cool place. We got a tent, we got this fake body, we got a fake dog, and like made it look like a kind of like a cruelty where the dog was killed, the person was killed. It was crazy. Like, we set it up great in this like remote area. And I just remember, like, we weren't going to air it over the radio just because we didn't want other agencies that didn't know about it to like come crazy. So I just like I pretended that I got a phone call. I came in, hey, I just got a call from crime scene. They're at this scene. We have to go like now. It sounds like it's really bad. And there was one individual specifically that I worked with at the time who did not handle that well at all. They could not grasp or deal with the fact that they had to be ready to go at that moment, ready to be on a scene for who knows how long. I couldn't answer how long are we going to be there? Is there this? Is there that? I don't know. We have to go to the scene and figure it out. Once we get there and get settled, we can talk about the other logistics. So as somebody that I'll just say, like, if you have that opportunity to do a mock scene and surprise your team, you will find out a lot about them.
I think it's one thing to note too, Dan, on that, just to kind of, and I hate to say something like this too, because we all need to be able to take care of ourselves and we all need to have our life outside of work.
Sure.
However, our industry is a 24/7, 365-day a year industry. And when things like this come up, I think everyone needs to be able to put some of that aside and understand that we're here for a job and we're here to help the voiceless. Because I will tell you that big seizure that we did, 10 hours, 3 of us with an expert, 10 hours. We were there from like 7, left the shelter at 7. And that's because dealing with, the venomous snakes, we had to bring a professional in so that they could help us with those things. So, just realize that sometimes we need a little bit of help, even if it's for a couple of hours. I don't mind being on scene for 24 hours if I have to be. That's what I get paid for. That is my job as a supervisor, is to be there and carry the team. But I think everybody needs to ensure that they realize that they are also part of the team and to help when situations like that happen, because everybody needs the help.
Absolutely. Well said. And one thing that I think is important, this, like, we 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 have so many people in this industry that want to be recognized for the work that we do, but the moment they're like required to kind of be law enforcement, they don't want to do it. They don't want to be that first responder. So not everybody, that's not everybody. People listening right now are like, nah, that ain't me, fam. And I believe that, but there are people, and that what's made me laugh is because those people that I'm talking about came to mind when I thought about it. And it's like, look, you either are or you aren't. And this job is a 24/7, 365. We are dealing with living, breathing, pooping, peeing, eating things. Like, they need us. Otherwise, bad.
It's funny you say that, because the number of people that are like, oh, well, the shelter's not open today, so there's nobody there. And I'm like, what?
Just because we're close to the public doesn't mean that we are not taking care of our animals.
Exactly.
That's a good point. We are there 7 days a week.
Any holiday, any type of weather, like, there is how many people do you think? I wish we would be able to find a way to figure this out. How many people do you think actually slept in the shelters during these hurricanes? Dan, I know you did it during some snowstorms.
Yeah, I've slept in the shelter. And shout out to that one person who saw my cute little video with me and Mooney and then snitched to the state because they really thought we were sleeping with a dog inside the cat kennels. It was like, I was like, have you ever seen that movie Night at the Museum? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure they're not listening, but if they are, their first name starts with a J and their last name starts with an H. So shout out to you. But they basically, I put it on like TikTok, and it was Mooney and me on an air mattress. And I'm literally, it's like 9 at night. I'm bored. I'm like, I can't sleep in the shelter. I'm going to just pull this air mattress into the little cat room and take a bit. All the cats had, like, they were in their cat cages, and some of them were open. But the other thing you have to remember is Mooney grew up with a kitten. So he's not cat aggressive whatsoever. In fact, he knows cat body language and behavior very well. So if a cat gives him that eye, he's like, okay, oh, my bad. So I would, I think the other thing about is, me, like, I would never put an animal in a situation to cause it harm or stress. And so we were probably in there total, like maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And so I posted the video. It was either on my Instagram or TikTok. And I just remember like a day later or 2 days later, my boss came to me. He was like, "Hey, the state called and they have video of you like in the cat. Did you sleep in there with your Mooney?" And I was like, "No, like absolutely not. First off, it would be uncomfortable and it smelled like cat pee. Like I'm not sleeping in there." And but to go to that length, I like to go to that length to like turn someone in for that without knowing the full picture. Like again, emergencies show people like that shows people their true like personality,
Yeah.
how people respond, and it's unbelievable. Instead of just picking up the phone or shooting me a text like, "Hey, did you really sleep in there, Ramoni? That's not cool." Versus, I want to get that person in trouble.
There's a lot of that, in this industry overall.
Yeah.
I don't understand. We're all here for the same purpose in helping the voiceless, and it can get ugly. It can get really ugly just because what you think and I think is different. I mean, all three of us on this podcast have different views on different things, and I'm not gonna be mad because you like blue and I like purple. He's so handsome.
This is a Mooney. Someone's gonna call the FCC and say I have a dog in my podcast, and I'm gonna get in trouble. We're gonna get a call from the FCC, boy.
Yo, he's so handsome.
I still can't believe he's got Chihuahua in him.
I know he's the bestest boy. I actually met somebody yesterday that had a Rottweiler Corgi mix, and it was actually exactly what you would think it looks like. It was crazy.
So it had the body of a
incredibly
corgi. It
cute.
looked like a Roddy.
Yeah, and then it had the stupid little front legs that corgis have, like the little inside out legs. And yeah, it's incredible.
That sounds incredibly cute.
It was pretty cute. Well, we could talk about disasters really for the rest of the day. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. I guess my advice to anyone listening, do that FEMA stuff. Be prepared for your own situation because you are going to be away from your family or your animal for extended periods of time. So make sure you have a plan in place. Try to educate others so they have a plan in place. I think that's important. And as we like to say on the show,
Check out our Instagram and Facebook and YouTube.
that's yes, good job. And what else we got? Also, just if you're still here, just vote early, vote often. Well, you actually don't vote, you just nominate. Go nominate people.
Nominate.
Phenomena. Do.
Let's go. Finally, someone else is singing on this bad boy. Please nominate someone for AC. There's so many deserving people and agencies.
There are.
Get out there.
There's some badass mother effers in this industry. I tell you what, there's just, I tell our assistant supervisor all the time, I'm so lucky to have her. She is one badass bitch.
It's just,
I mean, she just,
it
good
sucks
Lord.
that you're exempt from nominating because you're on the show.
I know it. She's amazing. She's got so much, we even each other out quite a bit. And it's just, I'm like, what should we do about this? And what do you think about this? And I'm so lucky to have the team that I do because, man, it's just, we're lucky.
Fair. I respect that. It's good to have a good team. Absolutely. Well, Bishop, whichever bishop, both bishops, take it away.
Help people.
Help animals.
And keep it humane.